We turn now to a potentially major medical breakthrough, the FDA approving the first new treatment for Alzheimer's in almost 20 years.
This drug approval, which is supposed to slow the rate of cognitive decline in initial stages of Alzheimer's disease, has caught every major news headline over the past week. At $56,000 per year per treatment, it's only been shown to have a statistically significant effect on only a small subset of the Alzheimer's population. The benefits for that subset of the population show decreases in cognitive decline by about 4 months over an 18-month period, while 40% of the patients suffer from brain swelling and many others have brain bleeding. In many cases, you'll have to undergo regular MRIs just to make sure that you don't have that brain swelling or brain bleeding. And this is leading many physicians to say that this is just a significant concern for the drug. This is clearly a high-risk drug for not so convincing benefits, which the FDA approved, even though an independent panel of neurologists and biostatisticians strongly recommended against it. And their main reason for approving it is that people with Alzheimer's are just so desperate that any sort of solution that might provide some sort of hope is better than nothing. But the truth is, we already have proven strategies to prevent Alzheimer's nearly 100% of the time. And those same strategies can be put in place to reverse mild cognitive impairment in nearly all cases as well. And studies are ongoing to see if these same strategies can reverse Alzheimer's disease completely. And instead of having dangerous side effects like brain swelling or brain bleeding, you have positive side effects like weight loss, muscle gain, and improved life satisfaction. And to me, that sounds like hope. And if you're too young or just not worried about getting Alzheimer's disease, then I have two things that might be worth taking into consideration. One is that cognitive decline, which leads to Alzheimer's disease, starts in the 20s and 30s for most people. So if you're watching this video, you probably already have some sort of cognitive decline right now. And two, these same strategies, which can help prevent Alzheimer's disease, can also help improve overall cognitive performance. So these same strategies can help you think faster, quicker, sharper, and more intelligently. These same strategies should be employed by everyone, even if you're not worried about preventing, slowing, or reversing Alzheimer's disease. They're just strategies that you can use to live life to its absolute fullest by prioritizing your health and your happiness. So let's get into it. Alzheimer's disease is a form of dementia, and it's a progressive disease that destroys memories and other cognitive abilities that eventually lead to death. And it's the fastest growing reason for death in the United States, with 10% of the people in their 60s getting it, 20% of people in their 70s, 30% of people in their 80s, and 50% of people in their 90s eventually developing Alzheimer's disease. And these numbers don't even take into consideration the precursor to Alzheimer's disease, which is mild cognitive impairment. Most people don't realize that you don't just get Alzheimer's disease. It's the progression of cognitive decline over years and decades, a lot of the time starting in people in their 20s and 30s. And the more your cognitive abilities decline, the faster that decline. So while most people only see Alzheimer's patients' cognitive abilities declining pretty rapidly at the end, this process has usually started years and decades ago. And the other thing I want to point out is that Alzheimer's disease isn't that much different than many of the other major diseases out there. Heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, all of the same underlying issues like weight gain, chronic stress, inflammation, insulin resistance, and atherosclerosis. And so while these diseases may manifest themselves differently in different people depending on their lifestyle or their genetics or their environment, they all have the same underlying issues. It's why we see people have comorbidities or multiple diseases at once so often. For example, atherosclerosis is a condition where cholesterol plaque can build up in your arteries, and this is commonly known as heart disease. Well, this same thing is happening inside the arteries of your brain, which can lead to Alzheimer's disease. For example, here are some images from healthy patients' brain arteries. They're wide open, allowing blood to pass through efficiently throughout the brain. And then take a look at this picture. Clogged arteries, not allowing blood to flow through efficiently. These are pictures from people with dementia. And there's not a lot of difference between these two diseases. Although plaque buildup can lead to heart disease in one person, or Alzheimer's disease in another person, most likely both of those people have plaque buildup throughout all of their arteries. These diseases really aren't that different. So instead of trying to come up with drugs that prevent plaque buildup or prevent high blood pressure or high cholesterol or insulin resistance, we should really look at some of the underlying factors which are causing inflammation, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, this plaque buildup. Look at the underlying factors which are causing this in the first place, and let's just address those root issues. And it all comes back to a poor lifestyle. Poor lifestyle choices are the number one contributor for all the major diseases. So here's some of the lifestyle changes you can make to prevent and slow and possibly even reverse Alzheimer's disease. So let's start off with fitness. Any sort of physical activity is going to increase blood flow throughout the brain and body. And when you start increasing blood flow, it's going to make it harder for these plaques to build up within your arteries. And it's also going to start dislodging some of that plaque that's already been built up. You can think of it like a gardening hose. If you have a gardening hose with a bunch of gunk in the hose, if you start running more water through it at a higher pressure rate, you're going to be able to dislodge the gunk in the hose and start clearing up those hoses. So theoretically, fitness should allow us to clean up these arteries, as well as have a lot of other healthy sort of processes like muscle gain and increased coordination, and just stimulation of the brain and other cognitive components. So does the science show this out? Does fitness actually help with Alzheimer's disease? Well, the Framingham longitudinal study showed that people who participate in daily brisk walks reduce their risk for getting Alzheimer's disease by 40%. And that's nothing too serious or strenuous, just a daily brisk walk, and you're getting lots of benefits to prevent Alzheimer's disease. And as you start increasing your exercise duration and exercise intensity, you're going to get even better results. For example, 47% of people, which is nearly half of people who did 2 to 3 strength exercises per week over a 6-month period, completely reversed their mild cognitive decline. That's nearly half of people completely reversing their mild cognitive decline with just 2 to 3 strength workouts per week for a 6-month period. And if you stopped working out after that, those results were maintained for 18 months after stopping that exercise. And it's also been shown that moderate to strenuous exercise increases brain size and increases neural connections. I mean, fitness alone may have more benefits than this new drug that was approved. And the more exercise you do, the better the results are going to be. Now, obviously, you can go overboard. For most people, this isn't going to be the case. So optimally, you're looking for about 15,000 steps that you're going to get throughout the day. You're going to perform about 4 resistance or strength workouts throughout the week and about 3 aerobic workouts throughout the week. Those workouts are going to be about 30 minutes long for optimal results at reversing cognitive decline. Next, let's cover nutrition. So we just talked about how fitness can increase blood flow throughout the brain and body, making it harder for plaque to build up within those arteries. But wouldn't it just be nice if there was less plaque in the blood to build up in those arteries? Obviously. So what are some of the top contributors nutritionally to plaque building up within blood? Cholesterol, saturated fats, and added sugars, or most commonly animal products and processed food. As whole plant foods don't contain any cholesterol, they contain minimal amounts of saturated fat, and they contain no added sugars. And it turns out that reducing dietary sources for saturated fats, cholesterol, and these added sugars prevents the release of beta amyloid in the brain. Beta amyloid is the plaque found within the brain. And it also makes it easier to clear out existing beta amyloid in the brain by reducing these dietary sources. And the idea here is eating a healthier diet is going to make it easier for us to lower our cholesterol levels and our blood pressure levels, which should decrease the risk for Alzheimer's disease. And as it turns out, those with elevated levels of cholesterol have a 3 times greater risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And those with elevated levels of blood pressure have a 2.5 times greater risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. And if you have both elevated levels of cholesterol and blood pressure, it gets even worse. And the overwhelming body of evidence says that meat consumption is the #1 dietary link to Alzheimer's disease, with eggs, high-fat dairy, and sweets following close behind. So ideally, we want to eliminate these animal-based products and these highly processed foods and focus on a whole foods, plant-based diet. This too seems like a better approach than the new drug that was released. Next, let's cover the most overlooked part of our day, sleep. A lot of people think of sleep just as a time to recoup energy, but it's just so much more than that. High quality sleep allows us to consolidate memories, process our emotions, help with our immune system, and just clear out toxic brain waste. One of the most important findings around sleep within the past decade is that there are glial cells inside the brain whose primary job is to remove toxic brain waste. And these glial cells are 10 to 20 times more active in the brain at clearing out this waste when you're in deep sleep. And to top it all off, one of these toxins that these glial cells remove is beta amyloid, that plaque that's building up within the brain's arteries. And what you can start to think of is that when you're awake throughout the day, you can think of it as like low-grade brain damage, where there's stress that's going on throughout the day, which is causing toxins and this beta amyloid to build up in the brain throughout the day. And then you can think of sleep as this janitorial role, which comes in and clears out all these toxins and beta amyloids at night. And if you're not getting high quality deep sleep, then you're not clearing out these toxins and beta amyloids, this plaque in the brain. And the scary part about this is it becomes a vicious cycle where you're not getting deep sleep. So this plaque, these beta amyloids aren't being cleared. And when you have plaque and this beta amyloids building up in the brain, it doesn't allow you to get as good of deep sleep. When then you're not getting as good of deep sleep, which is causing more beta amyloids, which is causing worse deep sleep, which is causing more beta amyloids. And you just have this vicious cycle which keeps going on, which you definitely want to avoid. And this is why the link between low-grade sleep and Alzheimer's disease is so strong. There isn't any sort of case where people got Alzheimer's and they didn't have sleep disruption already. That's why about 60% of Alzheimer's patients already have at least one clinically diagnosed sleep disorder. So ideally, you first want to see a sleep doctor to make sure that you don't have any sleep disorders, and if you do, get those cleared up immediately. And then after that, you're looking for about 7 to 9 hours of high-quality sleep at night. And I can't emphasize high quality enough because so many people get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and then they have a tough time waking up or they're just tired the next day. And that's just not high quality sleep. And lastly, I want to touch on cognitive health. So what's happening with Alzheimer's disease are more neurons are dying than are being replaced. This causes the brain to shrink and cognitive abilities to decline and be eliminated. But one of the ways to fight against this is to have more neural connections or a larger cognitive reserve. That way, when these neurons are dying off, you have a larger stockpile or buffer to work with to where these neurons dying off don't have as big of an effect. And all of this will decrease your risk of having Alzheimer's disease or just cognitive decline in general. So what are some of the ways we can build new neural connections and increase our cognitive reserve? So first, increase meaningful social interactions. Social interactions can be very taxing on the brain because you're thinking of thoughts, you're communicating those thoughts, you're listening to the other person, and you're just evaluating their body language, and all of this is just stimulating for the brain. And second, challenge yourself with these complex tasks. It's going to force your brain to develop these new neural connections as it's trying to figure out new ways to accomplish things. And third, learn something new. Whether it's learning a new instrument to play, or a new board game, or a new sport, or anything that's new is going to challenge the brain to develop new neural connections so it can start to understand these new things that you're throwing at it. And ideally, you can accomplish all three of these tasks at once by joining a board game club or a rec sport league. For example, I've recently picked up pickleball, where it's constantly challenging my skills. I'm learning new strategies when I'm playing, and I'm in a team environment where there's social interactions all the time. Activities like this are just golden opportunities to develop your cognitive health. So here are my final thoughts. Alzheimer's disease is a serious disease with sad and debilitating consequences. But nobody just gets Alzheimer's disease like that. They've been experiencing cognitive decline for many years, if not decades beforehand. But the remarkable thing is that proper lifestyle factors make it possible to prevent nearly 100% of Alzheimer's cases. But if you're at the point of clinical diagnosis, or you know somebody who is, these same lifestyle factors we know can tremendously slow the rate of Alzheimer's disease. And while nothing's ever been proven to reverse Alzheimer's disease, there are many studies going on from Dean Ornish and others that are looking to reverse Alzheimer's using these same lifestyle practices. And I'm confident that with a high level of compliance and all of these lifestyle factors that I talked about, fitness, nutrition, sleep, and cognition, we'll be able to reverse Alzheimer's disease just like we've reversed various forms of heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. This is an avenue far better than any drug today. This is a lifestyle far healthier and happier than most are living today. This is My Health Sciences.